welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex and I am here with another astrology oracle reading for you. And we are in a fresh month, a fresh week. It is August 1st and I am reading from a chart created for Dayton, Ohio at 11:11 a.m. as always. And this gives us a Leo sun, a Virgo moon, and a Libra rising. I love that energy. We also have a really, really important alignment that's happening right now in the sign of Taurus. We have a triple conjunction between Uranus, the North Node, and Mars. Now, I have actually covered, I believe, all of these planets in different readings, so I will link those in the show notes below. But this triple conjunction is all happening at the 18th degree. So it is exact as you are watching this video, and as I'm recording this video, we are looking at literally exact energy. It is amazing and it is very intense. So wherever you have Taurus in your natal chart, you are going to be experiencing this triple conjunction. Now, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. On one hand, we may be sort of reinventing things for ourselves, following more in the direction of our life purpose, and definitely feeling a little bit more motivated, especially to bring some stability, some security, and some beauty into our lives through this very revolutionary energy that's happening. In this particular chart, we are seeing all of this out of the 8th house, which is quite intense energy. As you may know, the 8th house is associated with Pluto and Scorpio energies, so it is all about sex, death, taboos, transformation, birth, and it is very intense. It's very intense energy, and it can also indicate some sort of inheritance or tax situation. So just take a look at where your natal chart has Uranus, the North Node, as well as Mars, and then take a look at where, Taurus is in your birth chart, which house it's ruling, any planets that are there. And to just take that a step further, if you have any planets at 18 degrees, then they would also definitely be kind of coming into this energy that is happening, especially 18 degrees of a fixed sign. That is Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus. So take a look at your own chart today and see how this energy is going to play out for you this week, because this is really the showstopper of this week, is this triple conjunction. All right, enough about all of that. Let's get into the reading for today. A couple things I would love to mention. I am now taking in-person astrology and tarot readings in Kettering, Ohio at The Well. It is a beautiful center with midwives, lactation consultants, therapists, psychologists, all different kinds of absolutely incredible, fortifying service providers who are all focused on women's health. I could not be more excited to be joining in this collective. So if you are in the Dayton area or even in Cincinnati and be willing to make the trip, I would love to do an in-person reading for you. I have information about this on my website for booking, and also on Instagram you can find a direct link as well. So if you've ever wanted to get an in-person reading from me, tarot or astrology, I would just love to do that for you, and I'm so excited to be able to offer this in person. I've been doing virtual readings now for the last 2 years, and I have to be honest, you just can't beat the in-person energy. Now, I know this isn't safe for everyone, so my virtual readings are also still available and accessible for those who can't make it to the area. All right, let's see where the energy takes us today. Kind of want to find a card that's actually a little hidden. It just seems right for today for some reason. Jupiter return. This is actually really cool to be talking about because just a few days ago, Jupiter went retrograde. And so now that Jupiter is exploring a retrograde motion, this is just certainly a time to pay attention to your faith, spirituality, belief systems, the modes of education and knowledge that you're seeking out, travel plans, a lot of these things. And as we know with retrogrades, there's always energy around the rule of Res, rethink, re-strategize, reorganize. And Jupiter is the great expander. Whatever Jupiter touches upon or whatever planet is in sync with, it really just grows that energy, right? So if you were someone, for example, who had Jupiter right beside your Mars, then I would venture to say, unless there's other aspects in your chart that say so, you are probably someone who just has a ton of energy, and perhaps also just a lot of physical stamina for things. They could be sexual things, they could be, a lot of working out, whatever it can be. But, at the same time, let's say you have Jupiter who is very close to your moon, your emotional feeling center would just be so much larger than would otherwise be, because again, with Jupiter, everything is expanding, it is growing. If you look actually at the astrology of the pandemic, Jupiter was in, an air sign for a very long time. Jupiter was in Aquarius, and, we really saw that spread of an airborne illness. And I'm not doing the best interpretation of the pandemic astrology. There's so many out there that you can look into, but it is really quite interesting to take a look and see how Jupiter acts and how Jupiter behaves. Jupiter right now is at the 8th degree of Aries, but it is, because it's going retrograde, working back a little bit. Jupiter only recently ingressed into the sign of Aries, which is why it's only at 8 degrees. But now it's going backwards. So it's going to go to 7, and then 6, and then 5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1. And I actually do believe we are going to see Jupiter moving back into Pisces a little bit. So what to do with that energy, right, is first of all to really take stock of where you have been growing and putting yourself out there, what you have been really just amplifying in your own life, right? What has been the center of your focus? Has it been your family? Has it been your friends? Has it been your career? Has it been a particular artistic skill? Whatever these things are, there is going to be sort of a revisiting, and we always have that with any sort of retrograde energy. It doesn't have to be just Mercury, although a lot of times with Mercury retrogrades, we do tend to focus a lot on the cognition and mental, because Mercury rules over communication. But again, Jupiter is worldwide, travel. Jupiter is higher learning, higher education. So if any of these things are relevant for you right now, again, just a wonderful time to really take stock of all that you've done, all that you've experienced, your holistic life experience through the time of your, the time of your life. I mean, heck, if you're alive right now, you are here for a purpose, you are here for a reason. But enough about all that. This is a Jupiter return card. So Jupiter returns happen every 12 years. So if you are natally someone who was born with Jupiter in Aries, then you will be experiencing your Jupiter return. Similarly, if you were someone who had Jupiter in Pisces, then you would have recently just been experiencing that, and so on and so forth. I was born in 1992, and my Jupiter is in Virgo. So when Jupiter was in Pisces, I was having a very oppositional experience to my natal Jupiter, and that is all a part of the cycle. So when a planet returns, and we have often discussed the Pluto return, or we can even discuss the solar return, which is when your sun moves to the exact spot it was at the time of your birth, which is also your birthday. So whenever Jupiter goes back to where it was in your birth chart, it is experiencing that same return vibe, right? So you can take a look in your birth chart and see what zodiac sign your natal Jupiter is in, and also at what degree, and get some information. So again, this happens every 12 years. So 12, 24, 36, 48, these are the times of your lives where you're going to experience a Jupiter return, and you're going to experience the benefits. So what are the benefits, right? So this Jupiterian cycle of growth and expansion also, comes with some tension, and that's what you're going to have, right? So we have this circular birth chart, and wherever in there your Jupiter is, let's say this is the point of your natal Jupiter, out there in the sky currently is going to be going all around your birth chart until it comes back to this point. Well, as it's going all around, at some point it's going to form an opposition where they're directly opposite. Another point, they're going to be square to each other. And then that return is always going to be a conjunction. So if you're hearing me talk about these aspects and you don't know what they are, there will be a link in the show notes about a blog post explaining these. But again, as we travel through those different points, to come back to that Jupiter return, excuse me, we will experience hardships. We'll experience the opposite effect of Jupiter expanding. So like with that Jupiter opposition, for me personally, I had a very different experience of what you would normally have with Jupiter, which was my business lost a lot of money. I lost some clients. I wasn't growing. I wasn't expanding. I wasn't getting the reach that I had formerly had. I'm inching now towards the next Jupiter return I'll have at age 36. I'm just now 30 this year though, so I have some time. But yeah, it is really interesting to kind of just take stock of, being in that midpoint. And that's where I'm at, right? The midpoint of this Jupiter return. And again, as Jupiter retrogrades back into Pisces, it is going to once again form that perfect opposition with my natal Jupiter. And that could be the same for you depending on how things fall. So let's say you natally have Jupiter in Libra, then that ingress into Aries that Jupiter made a little while back was starting to activate towards your Jupiter opposition, which is the halfway point to getting to a Jupiter return. And so, again, Jupiter is making its retrograde motion, but once it's done with its retrograde, it's going to, move forward once again and start going into Aries. And then for my natal Jupiter, Libra people, you guys are going to experience your Jupiter opposition, where your natal Jupiter is going to be opposite transiting Jupiter. So I hope that makes sense, kind of what I'm saying in terms of seeing the planetary movement there. But when it comes to actually finally experiencing the Jupiter return, it is all about finally reaping the rewards of that dynamic experience that you've been through. So again, take into account how old you are and where you're at in this timeline and see, are you on your way right now to a Jupiter return? Are you at the midpoint like I am? Or are you maybe even at that squared point, right? The nice thing about Jupiter is it works in 12s, much like the houses in astrology. So it's really easy for you to kind of track and see where in that Jupiterian cycle you are and what you're experiencing. Now, again, this is all about reaping the benefits. By many accounts, Jupiter is considered a lucky star. That is obviously going to depend on what other aspects and positions are involved in your chart. But if we think about Jupiter returns as kind of bringing us luck or bringing us, the quite literal benefits that we've worked for, it's a really beautiful thing to consider. And again, we're not thinking about benefits like things that are just given to you. These aren't freedoms. You know what I mean? This isn't Uranus that we're talking about here. What we're talking about is things that you have earned, which is very Saturnian, I must say, but it's things that you're earning out there at the world at large. What are you giving people? How are you connecting with people? What are you sharing with people? What are you projecting into the world? All of these, perspectives on your influence in the world. And I think a lot of times, especially for those out there who are suffering from anxiety or depression, it's really easy to fall into a pattern of thinking that you have no impact on the world, or that, the things that you want to accomplish and the things that you want to do, then this is just something to really tune into and to say, what, you are here for a purpose, you are here for a reason. And Jupiter wants to help you figure those things out. Jupiter is really, again, associated with higher learning and education and travel. It wants you to get out there and experience the world. It wants to have some kind of slingshot back, you know what I mean? And it makes a lot of sense when you think about the ruling planet of Jupiter, Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius is that bow and arrow, just pulling that bow back and slinging that arrow, which, by the way, is on fire. And it really creates this beautiful path forward. Now, we may not know what we're going to navigate on that path. We may not know what we're going to run into, but really keeping our eye on that prize of like where that arrow has landed. Once we finally make it there, that's the Jupiter return, right? So it's this really long, interesting, and intricate journey to get you to a further point in life. So that is what this Jupiter return is all about. Now, if you have Jupiter in Aries, this is your current Jupiter return that you're going through. If you have Jupiter in Pisces, then you've kind of already experienced this a little bit, and that retrograde is going to kind of reactivate it for you. So yeah, just again, take a look at wherever Jupiter is in your natal chart, and then you can kind of figure out where are you at on this journey. And I personally, my moon is ruled by Saturn, right? So I'm an Aquarius girl at heart. And I think like for me, I love the idea of really paying attention to time blocks, figuring out periods of time where you can analyze and pay attention to these things, not so much in a vacuum from the rest of your life, but where you can like really pull some data from that experience. And, if again, you're like me who has a natal Jupiter in Virgo, then take a step back at everything that you have been going through in the last 6 years. And where has that led you to where you are today? What have you had to experience and endure in these last 6 years? And how can you take and pull from those experiences to help you get through the next 6 till you get to that return where you get to finally benefit from your journey? I'm going to be reading from my book because this is what I do, my friends. All right. There we go. Jupiter return. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Ooh, and that right there, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Jupiter is often interpreted as a very lucky planet, but, there is a lot of work that has to go into that. Now, some people are born just naturally lucky, but I love that this quote is really, showing you, especially for those who are going through a Saturn return right now, that being a part in the midpoint of this Jupiter return and all of this, you're meant to be working. So work. A Jupiter return occurs every 12 years. This marks the time the largest and most expansive of the planets goes to the original place that you were born. Turning up the Jupiter return card indicates a period when doors are open to you and obstacles are lifted. You are given the freedom to advance your goals with absolute abandon. It suggests that you will soon be entering a time where you encounter less resistance and life should flow. The Jupiter return card is the green light that gives you the go-ahead. Paths are clearing and it's time to take advantage. Goals or plans that you've started more than a decade ago will begin to bear fruit either right now or at least very soon. Something very good could emerge from the debris of the past. It could be something that you felt was lost or something that did not work out how you expected or hoped. It may even be a plan that you've forgotten about once again re-emerging. In short, the Jupiter return card implies good fortune and prosperity, not just about financial or material means. Dreams could manifest into reality, gifts could flow into you quite easily. Spirituality, faith, and destiny are also very key points. There is a sense of rapidness as well, so if there is something that surfaces, make sure you grab a hold to it before it disappears. It's not a good time to get carried away, and, Jupiter can, right? Again, it's jovial, it's expansive, so good opportunity to just kind of like get grounded, and I really think that with that triple conjunction in Taurus right now, grounding is the vibe. It is the vibe. The only negative to this card is it's not a great time to indulge. Too much of a good thing can still be a bad thing. It is time to take broader reach, show your gratitude. You may want to travel and experience some more inner development. Communications with higher spirits are possible. Higher education calls to you. Publishing your ideas. It's time to relax, let go, and let things unfold. Be wise and pay attention, and don't take your eyes off the prize. You're in a great place now, but even better things are coming. It's just so lovely to have such a positive message come through on this day. For me personally as well, because my natal Jupiter is in Virgo, there is a trine between my natal Jupiter and this triple conjunction. So for any of those out there who are born similarly, who have that natal Jupiter in Virgo, This is actually a really incredible time. And again, in terms of thinking about publishing your ideas, if you've, been thinking about starting a YouTube channel, if you've been thinking about writing some blog posts, if you've been thinking about doing something to get your voice out there into the world, then this is such an excellent time to do it. And I think that the fact that we have so many self-publishing tools available to us now, what's the reason to not try? Because you're gonna fail? Jupiter doesn't fucking care. Jupiter wants you to try. Jupiter wants you to go out there and not give up, okay? And not in a way of being relentless where it's, aggressive, but just, keep on going, keep on trucking. If you're having a hard time this week figuring out where to put your energy, then I think all the topics that we've covered, spirituality, higher education, publishing, these are things that you should definitely have on your mind. So that is all I have for you this week. I will include all of those wonderful links I've talked about during this video in the show notes below. And if in the meantime you have any questions, comments, or again, would like to book a reading, then visit my website, theperryroseacademy.com. And until next week, bye.